Hello, Abigail here with the astrology of this week. And this week, guys, is action packed. There is an astrological event on every single day, and there's some really big moments. It's not, little astrology happening on these days. There's some really big stuff. We are finally getting into the part of the year where we get to experience the Jupiter Sun energy, which, especially in Cancer, has been much needed and desired. We have an exalted Jupiter with the Sun. It's an opportunity for some of the best things to happen in the year, and also the time to set the groundwork for the best things to happen going into 2026. So, because we get the Cancer full moon 6 months from now, so we also have the Cancer new moon. There's just a lot of really beautiful, momentous astrology happening. So, buckle up. Um, I've been talking to other astrologers about this, not to go too heavy on the do everything you can this week. But this week, if you want to do spell work or set things up for the future or make kind of steps towards something, absolutely the week to do it. That new moon in Cancer is specifically the time to really kick it off. Also, check where Cancer is in your chart, what it's aspecting. It'll give that extra juice as well. So there's just a lot happening and a lot of good stuff. There are some tricky things in here, but not tricky in a bad way. Tricky in astrology is mostly gray, and interpretations vary. We've got those squares between Saturn and Neptune to this moon. I personally think this is going to help us plan for the long term and be a little delulu to get the stuff done that we need to get done, while still having a decent understanding of what tools we need. Saturn conjunct Neptune is a really interesting vibe. It can be both, the kind of pulling away of the veil and seeing, through delusion, but it can also be a time when we can believe in something bigger and better, that if we were kind of looking at it logically or practically, would be like, well, this is never going to happen. But because we have Neptune involved, we're like, why not? Why not try? Especially in Aries. So, those things are tricky, but they definitely affect charts differently. But to me, it's not a bad thing to have a Saturn square. Saturn squares in any chart are signs of long-term things. Now, the quality of those long-term things up for the quality of what is happening in your chart and what is happening in the sky, yada yada. But it helps build and make things last. If you don't have any Saturn aspects in a chart, especially when it comes to like long-term relationships, there's a high likelihood that relationship isn't going to last long term. That's my perspective as someone who reads synastry. So having a Saturn Neptune square to this new moon really doesn't bother me, because I'm like, the stuff that you do now, it's going to last. Now, is it going to turn out maybe, in a completely different way than you expect? But it's still going to turn out for your betterment. So yeah, it's exciting. It's good astrology, especially if you're kind of looking at planning things. Anyone who's getting married or having a big event on this week, a lot of nice, benefic, friendly energy going on. So let's get into it. Monday, Sun square Neptune. Just a reminder, Saturn is right next to it. We will have just had the Saturn Sun square on Sunday, and now are the Sun Neptune square. So there's no way to divorce if you have the Uranus Neptune conjunction in your chart that I have, there's no way to divorce those planets from each other. They are constantly interchanging. They take on each other's traits. They have a lot of feedback. So we can't really escape from the Saturnian themes here, but it is both the ability to see and understand and kind of, see the unfortunate truths of something, but it's also a moment to believe that things can change, to believe that we can create different things, that we can have better things in the future. So it's this mix. It's kind of the curse of the seer, actually, where you can see what's going to happen, and because of that, it can change space and time. And then there's the blessing of the seer, which also means that you can believe in something better and in something different. If you do any type of mediumship or future gazing or anything like that, you will know that things can change based on the decisions of a person. And I totally believe that, predicting something changes the trajectory of said prediction, because now the energy of the person is keyed into it. So maybe the thing happens, but maybe it wasn't going to happen until the person knew about it. Time is funny. Nothing is fixed. And I think we're all going to learn that with Saturn conjunct Neptune in Aries. So it is a bit tricky. I will say a Sun square Neptune is a good moment to really reflect on your art and the way you create, and your wordless inputs into the world. If you are creative, this is the time to really kind of face what you desire and how you desire it and how you're going to get it. It might be hard. It might show to you that you don't have the support you need, or maybe the dream that you have isn't the dream that you have now. And so now you have to shift and adjust. It could also be a moment where you recommit yourself to a path, knowing different information. So, and you don't have to be an artist to do this. Anything that is taking something and taking something out of nothing and putting it out into the world is affected by this type of energy. So it's a good time to consider your hopes and dreams, to put them in the context of the world that we live in. But don't put them in the context of the world that we live in without any hope. Make sure that you put hope in there. If it is not the way that you wish it would be, which I think it is for most of us, find ways, make plans to change it, because Saturn conjunct Neptune allows us to project our dreams into the future with actual solid foundation, with the energy of Mars backing it up. Mars is currently in Virgo. It's a great time to plan things. So, see the world as it is and then plan to make a better one. And a part of that planning includes and involves, if we're talking about that sextile to Pluto, everyone, and experiencing the death process with everyone, and experiencing devastation with everyone, and not looking at our problems and issues as individual problems and issues, but as collective problems and issues. Not blaming your neighbor for the way things are, blaming the systems. And obviously, if you're around dangerous people, protect yourself, but like blaming the systems for the way things have been created rather than finding an individual to dogpile on. We're not going to change anything picking on someone who can't change anything. And if you're going to pick on an individual, pick on a billionaire. So yeah, that's the energy of that Sun square Neptune. It can kind of blur lines, but with Saturn there, there's kind of a kind of being brought back to Earth. But do both. Plan and create, and understand that oftentimes we put creativity in kind of this amorphous, untethered zone, and like planning in this box. They can cross over. You can creatively plan. You can plan to create. There's so many ways in which we can create art and beauty and put it out into the world. It does not have to be traditional. It does not have to be new, and it does not have to be old. You can do anything you want under these aspects. Will there be some tension? Yeah, you're going to have to work through some stuff, but it is great kind of energy to deal with. And then Tuesday, Sun conjunct Jupiter. Just a great day for really recognizing where you need care, really recognizing where you need to slow down, and to really focus on creating abundance, not in the context of capitalism, but in the context of like actual abundance, actual plenty. Plenty isn't excess. Plenty means we can make it through the next 6 months with all of our needs met, with our neighbors' needs met, and then, planning and creating for the next set of months. Capitalism is this idea of constant excess and constant production. I think some of the healthiest people I know, and very few of us can do this, are the ones who can do a bunch of work all at once, take a break. I know like 2 people who can do this. Take a break, take care of themselves, and then make a bunch of cash, another one. Obviously, not all of us can do that. But this idea that we constantly have to be more than we were yesterday is unhealthy. We just need to be and exist, and we will grow at a natural pace, and we will change as, the world changes. So it's time. I really think this Jupiter Cancer moment is a time to slow down. Obviously, there are things we need to activate for. There are things in the world we need to change. I'm not saying to disengage from those, but when it comes to participating in the capitalistic machine, I'm trying to do it. I'm not always good at it. Just, just to be real, I'm not. No one is perfect at it. No one should be. But finding ways to divorce ourselves from constant production, from the guilting when we're not able to do stuff. I'm chronically ill. I'm very rarely traditionally productive. But starting to take things slow where we can take them slow. Divorcing ourselves from hustle culture, divorcing ourselves from, and this is coming from a Taurus, from collecting culture. There, you can collect certain things. I have no issue with that, but collecting to an excess where you're never going to be able to enjoy the stuff that you have collected is just not healthy, and it's not good for the planet, and it's not good for us, and it's not great for community. But this Jupiter moment and the whole 12 months of Jupiter in Cancer, it is about re-understanding and reprogramming and taking the time and care and tenderness to engage with ourselves and our community so that we can make the world a different place. The world isn't going to change unless we change inside, unless we start to act and move as though there is a different world that is possible. The more you live in apathy, the more you live in, this is never going to change, so I'm going to do whatever I want. I've heard a lot of people, and they're all very privileged people. This is like people on podcasts and people who have, decent incomes, be like, well, the world's going to burn anyway, so I should dance. And I have no issue with people, enjoying themselves and having a good time. But to say that that's all you're going to do instead of trying to help the people who are getting burned first, instead of trying to change the world, instead of, activating and taking your privilege and doing stuff that makes things different, I find that to be kind of a weak response and a waste of your privilege to be like, well, it's all coming down anyways, and I'm going to be the last to go, so I'm just going to goof around. Like, you can be silly, goofy, and still resist, and still help your community, and still participate. Um, and some people say that and they are doing stuff, but a lot of people say that and they are refusing to participate because it's uncomfy. It's going to get a lot more uncomfy if you don't. Just going to say that. But with the Sun conjunct Jupiter, it is that time to really set some intentions for that, to really check in on the processes and systems and your concept of abundance, what you see as good, what you see as luck, what you see as production, to change that and to shift what we've been told. This is also a great time to shift your bigoted views on people. You may say, Abigail, I don't have bigoted views. I would. Most of us were raised with bigoted views of some group of people. Dig around, look around and find the group of people that you think kind of sort of deserves what they're experiencing. And if you don't, good for you. I'm glad you've worked through it. But a lot of us have these hidden things where, especially if you were raised and in any kind of privilege, where we have been taught that people who have less or, work a certain job or do a certain thing aren't doing hard work. And the truth is that the people that I worked with, because I've worked as a nanny on playgrounds caring for wealthy people's children, work 10 times, if not 15 times harder than any rich person I've ever met. And they're like, well, hard work makes you money. No, it doesn't. Privilege, position, the color of your skin, your features, those things make money. The woman who has cleaned houses all of her life and is going to die in poverty and on her feet has absolutely earned more than anyone who was raised with a silver spoon in their mouth ever will or has. And will work harder than I will have ever worked, even though I've worked hard in my life. It's not a competition. It's just breaking down these understandings of abundance and how people get and deserve resources. Everyone deserves food, housing, clothing. No one deserves multiple homes. No one deserves extreme wealth. No one deserves to have 10, 20 times more than someone else. I would even argue no one deserves to have 5 times more than everyone else. Yes, socialist, communist intersection here. I don't really subscribe to either. I think there's maybe a hidden third thing that we can use to create better societies that are non-hierarchical. But yeah, this Jupiter moment, this Sun conjunction is about recognizing your inherent value because you breathe, recognizing the inherentness of everyone's value, regardless of their experience or their lifetime. It's about abolishing the prison system. It's about abolishing the police and ICE. It's about removing borders. This Jupiter Cancer moment is about blurring those lines and focusing on empathy and care as the best qualities you can possess. Regardless of whether you can work, or of whether you can provide for yourself, you know, that is my Jupiter and Cancer message. you know, and yeah, it might sound utopian and far fetched, but if you do not believe an extreme amount of wonderful things can happen, you will only attain or achieve a very few in your lifetime for your community. You got to be a bit delulu. And then we have, which is a Jupiter quality too. Jupiter's belief in things. Jupiter is a teacher as well as a guide and a source of wisdom. The wealth of wisdom that lives in Jupiter is great, so it's not just about getting stuff. It's also about being a bountiful resource and knowing your worth and all of these things. And then following that, and I will do a longer video of this so this video doesn't run long. I also always do a new moon video. Is that new moon in Cancer? It's on Wednesdays on the 25th. Like I said, everyone buckle up, do your spells, anything you want to kind of set in motion or plan. This is a great chart to have as its birth chart. So buckle up. Let me see. I have my glasses on. So it's the kind of peak of this is 10:55 a.m. on a Wednesday. You can do stuff with new moons. I kind of like to do it after. You can do stuff a couple days after if you need to. Just know the degrees changing. You're going to change it a little bit, but you can work. If you can't do it on Wednesday, you can do it on Thursday. But it's really beautiful. It has all of the astrology we've talked about. And on that day, which is something I'm going to talk about, is Venus is going to be trine the South Node in the later degrees of Taurus. And the South Node is in Virgo. And this is very past lifey. This has a lot to do with the patterns and the things that we have kind of carried through our lives and haven't really been paying attention to, and recognizing that some of these patterns are not just patterns for this life, they're patterns we've had before. And some of these patterns are positive. I always want to bring this in because when I work with people, we're really focusing on the negative patterns because we're trying to fix and solve and navigate stuff. Some of these things are positive, but a lot of the ones that we want to fix have, negative qualities. What are some signs of past life stuff? Repeated relationship patterns where you're just like, I keep having friends who all have the same history. I keep meeting, romantic partners that are like the exact doppelganger of my last 3 romantic partners. Or I become this role in relationships all the time, and it's a role that I do not like. Also, things you can see are like getting the same jobs over and over again, losing jobs at the same pattern, struggling to kind of find your center in anything is a sign that you kind of got a lot of past life stuff going on. And it's not about removing everything. You will always have to work through stuff, but it's about processing and kind of releasing maybe a buildup of energy you've gotten over multiple lifetimes. And I find that South Node trines tend to be like, it's not all bad, but maybe you should look at some of the patterns that you're doing and, process and recognize that maybe this should change, or maybe at least recognizing can help us shift that dynamic. That's why I do karmic remediation. On kind of like a non-past life thing, this is about kind of recognizing where relationships have maybe harmed us in the past, but it's also about looking at not turning something bad into something good, because I think that gets a little gross and it forces victims to like have to be like, good things have happened to me because of bad people, which I don't appreciate as a victim myself. But to look at what you have learned from situations that were not good. Being raised by abusive parents, while I would have rather not been raised by them, I am very good at managing manipulative, toxic people in the moment. And I will not stay with them long term. But for instance, if I'm working with a spirit or a soul who shows toxic traits, and part of the reason we're having a reading is because they are toxic, I'm very good at navigating that. Doesn't mean that I appreciate what happened to me, but it means that I'm like, oh, I've got that skill set. So it's really about knowing what you're good at in relationships. Also, if you're struggling in a relationship with someone, in a friendship, in a romantic relationship, in a family relationship, this is a great time to look at what you have. What are you good at? And how can you activate that for this relationship? And it may end up looking like some parts of that relationship are 60-40, some parts of that are 80-20. The only main thing that you need to make sure is that there is equity within that structure, right? You're not always the one doing 80, 70, or 60. The person you're in relationship with is also taking accountability and responsibility in their lives. But it is really about looking at where there is a build up of a quality or of a thing and seeing if you either need to untangle it or if you need to activate it and use it so that the energy disperses and has a function. And then on Thursday, Mercury goes into Leo. This is important because at the end of Cancer season, Mercury stations retrograde. We have another Mercury retrograde, pardon me, coming up. It's going to be in Leo again, but it's in like pretty for sure like mid to early degrees versus last year where it was early degree Virgo, late degree Leo. But a lot of those themes are coming back up. I'm pretty sure it was sometime in August. So check back to that. Very important. Then we go through this Mercury marathon where on the 27th, Mercury is, trine Saturn. And so we get the first trine to that Saturn in Aries. This is a time to communicate boundaries. It's a time to recognize where you have been trampled on a bit. Obviously, the next day on Saturday, we're going into that Mercury trine Neptune, which is a great time for creativity. This is also a great time for liberatory speeches, for creating maybe like community guidelines or finding ways to connect and participate with other large groups of people. Another reason for that is on Sunday, Mercury goes into its opposition with Pluto. So that weekend is a huge weekend for community building, for finding, things that work in a system that is failing. And not work as in we're going to keep it, work as in we can find a way to activate it for ourselves for the moment until we can smash the whole thing. And then Mercury, Neptune, that trine. And of course, like I said, you can't really divorce these two things. It is about kind of speaking out into the world what you intend to do, speaking to the universe about your dreams and desires, and telling the universe your plans, and finding people also who can help participate. I also think Mercury opposed Pluto on Sunday is going to bring out a lot of lies. Mercury Pluto conjunctions, Pluto Sun conjunctions, Mercury Sun oppositions, I find with Pluto can be very telling, especially in a personal chart. If you think someone's lying to you, go find when Mercury or the Sun are going to be aspecting Pluto. You probably get some clues as to if you're right or not. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of verbal action around not just our personal astrology, but also the mundane astrology of that weekend. But yeah, the Saturn Neptune trines with Mercury, it is the day to really speak your truth. It is the day to set forth your agendas and your desires, and to really invest in understanding your place in the world. And then that Mercury trine Neptune in there is kind of a bit of a release. It's a time to dream. It's a time to be a bit delusional. It's a time to really just in between the Saturn and the Sun and the opposition with Pluto. Obviously, those things are still going to be affecting it. With that Pluto, Saturn are very intense planets, even in trine and especially in opposition. But if we get this nice moment with Neptune, there is a softening there. There is a fire energy. There is passion. It is a great day and time to declare something about yourself. If you've been waiting to share something about yourself, if you haven't, I think it'll come out in the open anyways. So either do it on that day or do it before. If you're planning on making a confession of love, if you're planning on coming out or like sharing something about your identity with someone, a lot of stuff is going to come to light. So if there's anything that you've been waiting to share with someone, maybe do it before this weekend or do it on this weekend because it's going to come out anyways. But yeah, I also think people who are not aware of this energy are going to be sharing things they didn't plan on sharing left and right, whether it is positive or negative. So just keep your eyes and ears open on this weekend. This type of energy, and especially with Mercury, and maybe it's because I'm Mercury ruled, I like to do a lot of observation and to see what the reactions are to it in order to kind of allow myself to kind of flow with whatever the energy is choosing that day. That type of stuff, I'm more interested in kind of attuning with the energy rather than activating it for myself. And part of that's because I don't have anything to declare in this moment. Maybe I don't, maybe that's not true. Maybe I'll find something out that weekend. And that's kind of how astrology works. So this is the astrology of this week. If you have any questions, obviously pop them in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy these. This week was a lot, I am aware, and I hope you enjoyed my ramblings. Keep an eye out for the Cancer new moon reading, which will be out on Tuesday. And also the tarot scopes, the tarot readings with a little sprinkling of astrology for Cancer season are currently being posted, as well as the astrology of Cancer season, which is already up. All of those videos are available. Please go check them out. And I will see you all in a different space and time. Have a blessed week.